My Wind Waker Let's Play is wrapping up right now, and I'm just about to start Pikmin 3, so if you fall within the small percentage of the gaming population that hasn't completely abandoned Let's Plays in favor of streaming, and you want to watch me play games specifically, despite the market being completely flooded, head on over to youtube.com/c/ArloPlays. C. Why the C? That's so awkward, I hate that. And check things out. Goodbye! Morp? The time has finally come. We have gotten our first look at the brand new Gen 8 Pokemon games heading to Switch later in the year. And it looks pretty good. We really don't have a lot of specifics, but at the very least we know that it looks alright in the graphics department, or at least better than it could have been. I don't know, opinions seem pretty split. Go check out my discussion video if you'd like to see all of my initial thoughts on the reveal. But right now I'm not here to talk about what definitely will be, but instead what might be, or rather what I hope will be. In other words, these are my hopes and dreams for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Man, that was a short intro. I mean, usually I spread it out a little bit more to help establish the pacing, but I don't know, I guess that's all I needed. So let's do it! Before I launch into it fully though, let me give the reminder that I will unfortunately always have to give to avoid confusion that I did not play the 3DS titles. The last Pokemon I played was Black, and I don't even actually remember it very well, so I've been out of touch for a good long while now. So keep that in mind when you hear my hopes for Sword and Shield. Since I'm less familiar with how the series has been, I don't really have a lot of nitty-gritty mechanical specifics that I'm hoping for. It's fairly broad stuff. Also, before I start, let me touch on the stuff that I did want and that I was planning on mentioning in this very video, but that it doesn't look like we're getting after all based on the, after what we've seen in the reveal. The first thing is amazing graphics. I've already talked about this a fair amount, again, in my discussion video, if you haven't seen that yet. And I do think that what we are getting is at least acceptable. It's nice. Wish lists are for all wishes though, even ones that aren't likely to come true, so I will say I was definitely hoping for a big graphical leap this time around, even if I wasn't expecting it. Didn't get it, but oh well, it looks fine, it looks good, it's better than it could have been, as I've said, certainly better than Let's Go. The other thing we don't seem to be getting is the wild encounter system from Let's Go, and this is a huge bummer. I know plenty of people like random encounters, and I really don't know why I'm getting so many people acting like I'm speaking for everyone, but I personally think this is taking a step back. I feel like the new system was more convenient, wasted less time, and even made more sense in terms of realism. It was less gamey and more real, like you're a real guy walking around looking for Pokemon. I would love to talk about these systems in greater detail and go over all the arguments for both, but I should probably save that for later. I will say though, the argument that it would take too much effort to implement doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know there are a lot of Pokemon, but each of those Pokemon is already fully rendered and animated in the game. All they gotta do is give each one a run animation on top of all their other attack and idle and intro and fainting animations, and they're good to go. But anyway, yeah, the fact that they're going back to the old system is a big blow for me. It was what I liked best about Let's Go, and while the game faltered in many ways, it made the basic process of just moving through the world and encountering Pokemon several times better. It made the core concept of Pokemon better, in my opinion, and so I just was really hoping that it was a permanent change moving forward. The final thing that it at least doesn't look like we're getting is Black and White's system of only giving us new Pokemon during the main story, then bringing in older ones in the post-game. I absolutely loved that about Black and White, because it really made the games feel fresh and new and exciting. I was so sick of moving through caves and running into endless Zubats. Zubats forever. So not seeing any sign of any old Pokemon for that long, that was a new experience right there. That really made it feel fresh. With Sword and Shield though, beyond the starters, all we've seen in the game has been old Pokés. It is technically possible that that was all just for the trailer and that the older ones won't show up until way later, but I ain't betting any money on that. It's yet another thing that I felt like was just a straight up improvement, a step forward that they tried once and then decided to ditch it forever. Awesome. Let's get to it though. Here are my hopes and wishes and dreams for Pokemon Sword and Shield that have not yet been dashed. First up, even if we know that the graphics aren't like mind-blowing, I do hope for some fun spectacle in there. The backgrounds that we've seen are definitely a step in the right direction, so I just hope for a lot more of that. In fact, I think I've gained a much stronger appreciation of backgrounds in recent years, so give me lots of beautiful landscapes and all that. But then cutscenes and battle animations and everything. This will be my first real 3D Pokemon, and I wanted to just blow my hair back, you know what I mean? I want to see at least some stuff that makes me go, yeah, this is a home console game. This is the home console Pokemon game we've been waiting for. At least a little. The other thing that would make it feel just like that home console Pokemon game we've all been waiting for would be free camera control. Now, I know a lot of people are already pretty sure that the camera control is not free. I will admit there is no solid proof of free control in the reveal trailer, as all the camera tricks might have been done in-engine. However, I am not giving up hope quite yet. Until it is confirmed one way or the other, I am gonna wish upon a star, because the way I see it, that camera is the final shackle that binds the series to handhelds. The environments made the jump from 2D to 3D, followed by the character models. We went from 8-bit chip music to more advanced music with real recorded instruments and sounds. We got battles where the camera moves around all over the place. We've slowly broken free of the limitations of low-powered handheld devices. But this camera is the last thing. Create a fully rendered 3D world and allow us to view it at any angle, and we will finally have the true Pokemon adventure that we seek. Keep giving us a fixed camera that only shows us what the game wants us to see, and it's gonna keep feeling like an HD handheld game. That's the way I see it, at least. Next up, I want the games to use at least some of the good stuff from Let's Go. I know we're not getting the encounter system, but how about the ability to switch out your party whenever you want? There was initially a part of me that thought that was a little too hand-holdy, a little too easy, but I soon realized that it was just more convenient and more fun. And just like with Let's Go's encounter system, it makes more sense flavor-wise. If you can send Pokemon to your computer at any time, why can't you retrieve them? Heck, they could even take the ability away sometimes to keep you on your feet. Maybe you can't access your box in certain locations, certain extra hard caves or something, or during electrical storms or something. Who knows? Play with the idea. Speaking of Let's Go, though, another thing I want for Sword and Shield is to not have any of the bad stuff from Let's Go. Namely, the preposterous one-handed control scheme and the motion-controlled capturing. The two things that made playing on the TV a great big crampy chore. Seeing as Let's Go was all about pulling in Pokemon Go players, I'm not really worried that the stuff will make it to Sword and Shield, fortunately. Though one other thing that I don't want to bleed over from Let's Go is a dearth of post-game content, which leads me to the next thing that I do want. A lot of post-game content. I don't know what the current trend has been in the 3DS titles, but I do know that back in my day, beating the main story opened up a whole bunch of stuff to do. It really just opened the world up and gave you a reason to keep playing and playing and playing. I just hope we get that here. I want to feel encouraged to train up a mighty team and go off exploring after I beat the Elite Four or whatever. I want whole new areas with tons of extra challenging trainers to fight and stuff to find. And on the subject of challenge, this is a really big one. I want there to be one or more good ways to adjust the difficulty of the game. I've heard things about the 3DS titles that worry me. Things about how the games are becoming exceedingly easy and that they've got more tutorials than a Mario and Luigi game at a tutorial convention. Joke of the Year 2019, right there. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of people felt that Let's Go was too easy, thanks in large part to the automatic XP share, but since I couldn't put everything I earned into just one Pokemon, and also since I didn't really enjoy catching loads of Pokemon as a means of grinding, I actually had a more challenging experience with Let's Go than I have with any mainline Pokemon game. The catching and XP share mechanics in Let's Go had pros and cons, so I can't say for sure how I would handle either of them, and I definitely don't want to go into them here. And one thing about Pokemon is that, as I experienced in Let's Go, much of the difficulty is set by the player. Only use one guy in a game where there's no XP share, so he's strong enough to knock out everything with one hit? That's easy mode. Raise up a whole team of Pokés and train them evenly? More challenging. Or at least it just takes more grinding, which is another way to make things easier. The more you grind, the stronger you are, pure and simple. Then of course there are all sorts of self-imposed limitations, as we see with like Nuzlocke and the like. But what I want in Sword and Shield is the option, or even a number of options, to make your game easier or harder right there in the game. Like in the options menu or at the beginning. I mean, these games are designed to be played by 5-year-olds and grumpy old-timers like me alike. When you do that, you're gonna have some balance problems. And self-imposed challenge is fine, but I want to be able to just plain old make the game harder. I want to be able to tell it, hey, I'm 31. Please skip all the tutorials about the basics and scale up all the Pokemon I fight or something. Make the AI a little more aggressive, something. Or hey, here's an idea. Higher levels don't necessarily mean harder because you can always just grind more, right? To make it easier. What if you can scale your Pokemon's levels down at will, and the lower level you are when you beat trainers, the better the rewards you get, so you're constantly encouraged to challenge yourself. Go Sakurai on the problem. I think that's an excellent idea. Whatever the case, I just don't want to breeze through the game with no effort at all. Even if it's a series that kids love, there's no reason it can't make everyone happy and feel satisfied. Another smaller thing I'd like to see. X and Y had Mega Evolutions, which I felt were weird, though interesting in their own way. Then Sun and Moon had Alolan forms of old Pokemon, which was definitely clever and fun to see, but I'm not super into that, for lack of a better word, gimmicky stuff. I mean, it's not bad, but let's just say I'm not really into the idea of each new generation needing a weirder, wackier thing to do with Pokemon. I can definitely appreciate that they're trying to keep things fresh, but I feel like there are other ways they could be rethinking and revamping the gameplay that's not just powering your guys up and making them look weird. And it sounded like Alolan forms kind of replaced new evolutions of older Pokemon, so I definitely want to see new evolutions make a comeback, and alternate evolutions as well. I always thought that was one of the coolest things in Gold and Silver. All of a sudden, this lame, non-evolving guy is completely cool and viable, or this awesome, completely viable guy just became even awesomer and viabler, or just kind of different. I don't know, it's just fun. It's a great way to offer something new while still pandering to my nostalgia, which is, well, that's one of the most important things, isn't it? Here's another very big one, though it is also very vague. I want them to pull a Breath of the Wild on Pokemon. Not the graphics. No, we're past the graphics. I mean, I want them to break apart the formula entirely and rethink what a Pokemon game should be. This is, of course, very dangerous. I've heard that the last few games actually changed quite a few things, but that not all of the changes were for the better. But I still have to hope for changes. Even by Gens 4 and 5, I found myself getting a smidge tired of the formula. New features and tactics like Black and White's new Pokemon system can definitely help to hold things up, but I'm ready for them to come at some of the common Pokemon-isms from a completely new angle. Again, that can be dangerous. It's the classic conundrum. When does a change invigorate a stale formula, and when does it pull a game too far away from its original series identity? But I'm feeling dangerous. I will take that risk and hope that stuff changes. Will it end up being for the better like I feel it was in Breath of the Wild? Well, this is my wish list, so I wish that it does. I hope that we get a ton of those moments where we go, whoa, they made it this way now, and this way is way better. Why was it that old way for so long again? I just want them to look at the basics, even stuff as basic as how many Pokemon are in your party, or how many moves each one can have, or how combat and stat changes work. I'm not saying I want changes in these areas specifically, but I at least want them to be on the table. I want nothing to be off the table. You reach a point with a series where you just have to wonder how much stays the same because it's the best way to do things, and how much is just the way it's always been. Just the way it was in the first games, almost arbitrarily, so that's the way it is now and forever will be. Finally, we come to what is very likely the most important item on this list. Please, please, Game Freak, no more Pokemon that look like Pikachu. Like, what is this? What is this? We already have Pikachu. You don't need to just do Pikachu again. I mean, I get that Mimikyu is mimicking a Pikachu. Fine, but come on. What is this? Stop this. Or at least give other Pokemon that are more deserving a bunch of different versions for no reason. So that's that. What will Sword and Shield ultimately be like? Only time will tell. But there is one thing I can tell you. I am excited to pick up a new Pokemon game again. Considering how big a part of my life it used to be, 8 years is just too long. So stay tuned for more Pokemon discussions and expect me to milk the topic for all it's worth over the next 7 months. Ooh, did I just say that last part out loud?